Well, hello everyone. This is Ron, and we are Empire Coins and Collectibles. The we is me and Miss Empire. She's really the boss. She's the puppet master. She pulls my strings quite often. So I'm trying to please her when I do these episodes, and if I misstep, she's going to let me know. But that's all in good fun, of course. What we hope we're able to do is inform you and entertain you. When I say inform, I'm talking about education about coin collecting. We are all about collecting coins, tokens, memorabilia that is related to the coin collecting community. Whether or not you're collecting coins or tokens, it doesn't really matter. To me, they're all so very interesting, and I collect a little of both. But it is helpful from time to time to focus in on those things that are of high interest to you. And therefore, this episode, I do love die cracks and die clashes and anything that is an error that is produced by the mint. And with that, actually, before we get into the content, I'm going to show you some very interesting steel cents that I acquired at a recent estate sale. Before we go there, if you could, please like, share, and subscribe. That will help us grow our viewership, and we can reach more people, and therefore maybe perhaps say something that is fun and educational to them as well. Okay, enough of all that. So we are going to talk about steel cents, Lincoln cents, produced during the war, World War II. All the nickel and copper was confiscated to go to the war effort, and therefore nickels were made out of silver during that time period, and some cents were made out of steel. And I've got some examples. I've got 9 examples actually in this episode. We're only going to show 3. And these are 1943 produced by the Philadelphia Mint. They're in really good condition, but they do have some errors on them. They have die cracks, the first 3. So I'm going to share those with you one at a time. We'll look at them first in the flip, and then we'll put them under the coin microscope. And hopefully you'll help me see what I didn't see when I originally did the identification of the errors. And with that, let's go ahead and flip to the first coin. I'm going to go and change cameras here. So we're looking at now this 1943 cent. And notice I've got it labeled as number 1. There are 9 of them in this episode. We're only going to address 3. Now notice I have already marked out the location of the die cracks, and they are on the reverse. The reverse. We'll look at both the reverse and the averse just to make sure I didn't miss anything. So I'm going to bring this a little closer, and hopefully you'll be able to see it a little better. And I think you're getting a good view of that die crack there. It's in about the 10 or 11 o'clock position, and you can certainly see that very well. Now, can you see the other? Not real good at this point, but I will pull it put it under the coin microscope, and you'll be able to see it very clearly. So let's go ahead and change the camera view once more, and we're going to go to the coin microscope. We may have to play around with see, this is number 1. We may have to play around with the lighting just a bit to get it all nice and shown so it can be clearly seen. Now that's pretty good right there. And you can see that die crack. And let's see if I can adjust the other one. Don't want to wash it out. The light can be too bright where you might not see it really well. See, these coin microscopes have these lights on arms, and you can move them around to showcase the coin in the best view. Now, I'm going to turn it a little bit under these lights. Oh, yeah. Now you can see it. I'll get my toothpick because Miss Empire always wants me to point out the location of the error or the feature we're looking at. And you can see it's quite a long one. What we're going to find is that it erupts from the edge of the coin when we get it under a bit of more magnification. So let's just do that right now. Let's lower it just a bit. And we're going to bring it back into focus. And again, for those of you that may just be joining us for the very first time, Die cracks occur when the working die, under great stress and strain over repeated use, develops a crack in it. And then upon the next minting of a coin, that planchet is put under tremendous pressure with the working dies, both the obverse, the top, and the reverse, the bottom. And that metal will flow like water. It will flow up into the crack. So when the coin is actually, the newly minted coin is actually released, you'll see that that material that flowed into the crack is actually a raised ridge on the coin itself. And you can actually see that this is a raised ridge right there. Now we had two die cracks on this. Let's go ahead and look for the other one. See how long that one is? We'll look at it again just before we leave and go look at the reverse, but we're supposed to have one down here. And I believe that die crack is right there. The arrow's not quite on it. We've got, looks like some die chips down here, but right there, you can see where it erupts from the edge of the coin and goes up into the wheat stalk. So we're going to move this around a bit more. Yeah, you can see it better that way. And I'll get this light where it does showcase that particular crack a little better. We're going to lower and magnify this a little bit better. All right. And so you can see that. Yeah, not too much of a problem. But you either need a hand loupe, I would recommend a times 10, or get you a coin microscope like this. This is a Tomlov coin microscope, and it'll cost you, depending on the version you get, $250 to $350. If you're serious about collecting coins, you need one of these because some of these areas you'll miss, right? And you won't know what treasure you have if you miss it. Let's go back to the original die crack. And there it is. Now, see, you can clearly see it under this magnification. And clearly, let me just check the magnification and the focus. Yeah, clearly you can see where that metal flowed up and out of the planchet when it was being minted. There you go. So it's a very nice long die crack. Not real beefy, but pretty beefy. Let's flip it over and see if we've missed anything on the reverse. I'll just tour around the surface of the coin. And if you see anything, go ahead and shout at me. Leave a comment down below. I don't think we did. I looked at this pretty good. But, you know, it's always a possibility. And perhaps that's a best practice that I can recommend to you. Look the coins over really closely and then set them aside and then come back to them and look at them again. Now, see, because we're doing that, I'm looking at something that's kind of suspicious here. Look at that. Is that a die crack right there? I don't know. Let's go a little lower and see. We'll go just a little bit lower. Bring it back into focus. And you know what? I believe that's a spiked head. I believe that is a die crack right there coming down into Lincoln's head. I'll have to mark that again as we change coins and begin to prepare to look at the next coin. Okay. But yeah, we've gone around the coin. Haven't seen anything but that area. So I'm going to pull this off, change cameras, and go back and look at the second coin. And it's on the short camera here. Hopefully it will focus. And as it focuses, can you see the die cracks? There's actually one that I'm showing on this side. And again, this is a 1943 from the Philadelphia Mint. Now, it's not magnifying really well, but here it is. It is in focus. And gosh, you can see that. That die crack is almost located the same place as the other one was. Let's take a quick look at the reverse. We have two. The other one, we just found one that wasn't marked, but this one we have identified two die cracks on the reverse. So let's flip it back over. We're going to put this under the coin microscope. Now, clearly, you can see that this die crack erupts from the same place as the previous coin's die crack had on it. And just to show you, this is a different coin. It's number 2. It's in a coin flip. And you see evidence of it erupting from the edge of the coin, and it comes down toward the sea. So this is a real good clue for you. The clue is that the fact that we have the same type of die crack on 2 different coins means that there is something in the die itself. This is the reverse die that is damaged, that is creating these cracks. So yes, that is a die crack, and it's a pretty good looking one. Now let's go around the surface here and see if we can see anything else. Yes, and this one's not marked. This one should be marked. There's that die crack we looked at, same as the first one. I'll need to mark that one as we get ready to look at the third and final coin in just a moment. But this is showing you that typically when a die is used in producing several 100,000 to millions of pieces of currency, that it gets stressed, and that it's kind of like flexing a piece of metal. As you flex that, you generate heat, and eventually there will be a mechanical breakdown of that piece of metal, and you can separate that metal as you bend it back and forth into 2 separate pieces. Well, the die comes down and under tremendous pressure and prints the image of the working die onto the coin, and it does it over and over and over again to the point that the metal is fatigued, and at some point it begins to break down. And this is not a catastrophic failure, because if it were a catastrophic failure, you'll see pieces of missing die, and it would show up as die cuts. In this particular case, cracks are opening up in that working die of the reverse of this 1943 steel cent. So I'm going to mark this up in just a second here, but let's go on around. Is there anything else? There appears to be something right up here at the top of the D. But then again, I don't know if that's a scratch. We'd have to go down a little lower to inspect it. And there's something that goes up through the E there, but those may be scratches. Let's go down just a little bit lower just to take a look. I think those are scratches. Okay, remember, a scratch will be embedded in gouging the coin. Die cracks will have metal that rises above the surface of the coin, like this right here. Okay, let's flip it over right quick. And we do have 2 die cracks. And we can see the one right here, right? And let's see if we can find that other one. And it looks like we've got a die crack erupting in right here. Kind of. Okay, certainly this is beginning to look like it's going to be opening up as a die crack as well. But that kind of looks like a scratch up in this area. But here, as we come in, looks more and more like a die crack. You see it now? The lighting's better now, right there. And it rises above the coin. Okay, I'm going to flip this over and put it on the other camera. This is the last coin we're going to be looking at in part 1, and then we'll transition over to part 2 in just a bit. So we're going back to the camera. This is the third coin. We'll see if we can get it to focus. And while we're doing that, while it's focusing, I'm going to look and mark this other die crack up that I missed. I'll just have to find it. Yeah, there it is. So, you know, this is real time, guys and gals. That best practice is always check and double check and triple check your coins, because the first look you might find the major features. The second look you might see some of the more minor errors. Now this one is the third one, and we see that it's showing that there's 1 die crack on it, and you can see it kind of there. Let me get the toothpick. You can kind of see it right there, right? We'll look at it under the coin microscope in just a moment, but notice this side has multiple die cracks on it. So let's go ahead and put it under the coin microscope. I will flip over there right now. And okay, We're going to raise it up just a bit because we're down fairly low. And we'll adjust the lights. And now I'm going to have to bring it back into focus. Now show you it is the third coin. There's the third coin marked. And let's look for the die cracks. There it is. And you can clearly see this one is more pronounced than perhaps the others. And it's showing that the die crack does progress and gets more beefy over time as the die continues to fail. So that's pretty interesting, isn't it? Let's just tour around, see if we've missed anything. Now, this one is very interesting because it looks like it may have had a die clash. Do you see that uniform structure right there? That is not on the reverse of a 1 cent wheat penny. So that would suggest to me that the working die may have had damage, or it might have clashed with something else. And therefore, this image was imprinted on the working die and then transferred over to the actual coins. So I'm not saying, I'm thinking it could be a die clash because it's so straight. Who knows? And then over here, there looks to be a die crack that's coming off the end of the T. So there's a lot going on this coin, but it certainly, doesn't that look like some type of structure that was intended? It does to me. Let's flip it over and look at the back side. This is the averse of that number 3 coin. And we can see a die crack right there. And let's see if there's one around the D as well. We'll get a little closer and bring it back into focus. Certainly, this looks like there's some evidence of cracking. And is there anything else there? Let's look at Lincoln's head. Sometimes you'll see lamination errors on Lincoln's head. I'm not sure why that is, because that's a common point. There's another die crack here. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, there it is. Let's get the lighting just right. You can see that right in this area down through here. Now I'm going to go lower because we want to make sure that's not scratches, right? So let's go down a little lower, and we're going to see if there's some gouging. If there's gouging of metal coming out, then it's probably a scratch. But I don't know. It looks like this has risen above the surface of the coin and continues down here. What do you guys think? I mean, it's progressing all the way down through there. Is that a die crack? Kind of interesting, isn't it? Let's see if we can move the lights around to make it a little more pronounced. Yeah. So maybe it's a bit questionable, but now look at this. Look at this coming up. I don't think this is polished lines, but it could be polished lines right there. But that kind of looks like the start of a die crack as well. All right, let's go back to the main camera. We're going to wrap up part 1. Hopefully this has been interesting to you. I've got a part 2 and a part 3 coming up on steel cents worth money, and that they have die cracks and other types of errors on them. So stay tuned for part 2, and we'll get to it here shortly. Thank you for being with us. Take care of yourself, and until next time, all the best.